There was a point where trying to sleep felt like the hardest part of my day. I'd lie in bed for hours and sleep just would not come. I ended up obsessing over this feeling, worrying that I would feel tired and exhausted the next day, and I got used to the feeling of being tired. I began to believe that I had insomnia, and I thought that there was no way out. I thought that I was broken somehow, like I was some sort of night owl, and I could never be the morning person that everyone else seemed to naturally be. So in this video, I want to talk about the problems I've had with sleep, and how over the years I've managed to change my mindset and found some of the best sleep that I've ever had. So, how did it happen? Well, it all happened from old habits. I was a gamer that would game late into the night, and I think using screens late into the night is half of the reason I got into this mess in the first place. I would play so late into the night that I would only feel ready to go to sleep when the sun came up. And I think that this experience ingrained it as a habit for me. As I got older, it felt like this was the only option I had, that sleeping during the night, as everyone else did, just was not an option for me. And I did genuinely believe that I was just not that kind of person. Oh, how wrong I was looking back. But at the time, I felt stuck in these habits. I remember many nights I would lie in bed, and I had an iPad at the time, and I would put on a video believing that this was the only way that I was going to be able to sleep that night. If I put someone on talking in a monotone voice or watch something relaxing, that would bring the sleep that I so desperately wanted. I was trapped in this loop of watching videos, and I distinctly remember one night watching a video of someone hopping on trains across the country and lying there watching this video for about 3 hours straight, knowing that I needed to be up the next day. But it felt like I needed to watch this video. And the feelings that I had when I paused that video and tried to sleep were actually quite terrifying for me. I got stuck in this loop thinking that there was someone looking at me in the dark. I had convinced myself that someone was in the bedroom. I just didn't feel safe. And now, thinking back, I was just stuck in fight or flight mode. My nervous system never had a chance to quieten down and wind down for sleep time. So I was wired, and I was feeding my brain all sorts of information and messages to keep myself stuck in this feeling of fear. So because of that, I would lie there, my brain would be worrying, and I would be worrying about anything and everything. I would worry about the next day. I would worry if some unknown person had somehow infiltrated my bedroom late at night. I would worry about absolutely anything, how tired I was going to be the next day. It didn't matter what it was, I would just find something to worry about. It was an endless cycle. And I think at the end of the day, it was all just a distraction. I was trying hopelessly to avoid being surrounded by my own thoughts. I never gave myself time to think during the day, to have that space where I did have some quiet, where I wasn't blocking out my thoughts. Because when I was stuck with my thoughts, it always led to worry and fear, and it just made me feel that life was impossible. And being stuck in this loop of late nights, no early mornings, that's how I thought I worked. I worked jobs that facilitated this. I would work jobs that worked until midnight, and then I would go home and game, and then wake up around midday, and that was when my day really started. And I was okay with this at the time, but sleep felt like such a problem. I was always scared of having to go to sleep, because honestly, like I said at the start of the video, it really did feel like the hardest part of the day. I had to lie there and battle with myself and just wait until I passed out. I was hyper alert. Like sometimes I would not just be thinking about my thoughts, but then I would worry about physical things like my heart pounding. Everything was just at the top of my mind. So, how did I go from a person that could not sleep until the sun was rising in the morning to now someone who wakes up usually at between 5 to 6 a.m. every day? Well, there were a couple of things that I learnt along the way. One of the first things that I did was I set myself a bedtime and wake up time that was set in stone. I always went to bed at the same time every night, and I just kept it that way. It did take me quite a long time before I started feeling that it was something that I could actually do. But the longer I stuck with it, the more that it felt like this was now my sleeping routine. So just stick with a sleeping wake up time, a sleep time. That was how I began to start. The next thing that I found very useful was actually dulling my senses. And what I mean is wearing things like earplugs. I realised that I was hyper aware of any sort of noise that was going on. I seem to find any sort of noise, any sound, puts me in fight or flight mode, even when it's just the minorest of things. It could be a very slight bang in the distance of the house, and I hear that and my body is filled with fear. Like a jolt of fear goes through me, and no longer am I ready for bed. I'm ready to hide. And then I'm on high alert, I'm listening, waiting for that next sound, just waiting, for no real reason in particular, other than I heard a noise. So the very first thing was I wore earplugs, and that dulls the sense of hearing for me. And that was actually a great benefit for me. I found it a lot easier to remain calm. The next thing that I did is I turned on a desk fan, which created a sort of white noise, a static noise, a constant noise that allowed me to not focus on the silence. I used to say that the silence was deafening. I would lie in the bed and all I would hear is the sound of my own ears ringing and the thoughts in my head looping around, the worries, the concerns. It felt inescapable that was just how I worked. And to a certain extent, it is just how I work. And dulling my senses has been one of the greatest tools that I've found for helping me sleep. The next thing that I did was I covered my eyes. I don't actually use an eye mask, I just put a t-shirt over my eyes, a nice light one. And still to this day, I don't like the feeling of wearing an eye mask. I just put a t-shirt over my head, and that works extremely well for me, and I've done that for years now. I just have a couple of dedicated t-shirts that just go over my eyes. And the next thing that was actually really important is allowing yourself that wind down time. This was something that I didn't really truly give the amount of energy that I believe it's important to give to until more recent years. But having that wind down time is much more important than you might think. The days where I try and go straight from work or whatever I'm doing to going to sleep immediately, it just doesn't work for me. I found that I need at least a couple of hours to just to slow down essentially, to wind down, to not have to think about certain things. But yes, those nights where I come home, I've done something a bit late, out of my sleep routine, and I don't have that wind down time, I'm lying in bed and my mind is whirring. Now you can have this quiet time throughout the day. If you feel like you're not going to have that time at night to have a little bit of quiet time, try and allot yourself some quiet time during the day, so at least you have that time. I think one major problem is, as someone who loves using technology, I've played games pretty much my entire life, since I was about 3 years old when I first used a computer. I'm 32 years old now. You could say I'm a technology addict. I'm addicted to using the internet, that's one thing for sure. And I still have to listen to monotone voices just before bed to make me feel calm, with like watching YouTube videos. But my point is, I'm reliant on that technology. But I think that using that technology throughout the day, it doesn't allow you that space to see how you're feeling about things, work through your thoughts. And when it gets to bedtime, you're lying there, you're almost confronted with your thoughts. They're thrust upon you and you're forced to see how you truly feel about something. And then you might start thinking about things you've said throughout the day, wishing you changed things. And if you had that time to consider these things throughout the day, you may not have had to lie there and think about it when you're trying to sleep. So yes, that's how important I think the wind down time is, but you can allocate yourself time throughout the day to have that wind down experience. And these small changes do add up. There are other things that I do as well. For instance, you might see them here. I've got these blue light blockers. I'm dodging at the wrong time. I wear them every night from about 7 p.m. Just start blocking out that blue light. And that really helps too. It makes my eyes feel a little less strained. And it reduces the effect of the monitors on me. I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed by this boss fight right now. This would be something that you shouldn't do just before bed. They call it arousing activities, and I'm talking about arousing in the sense that it gives you hype or excitement. Playing a competitive video game just before bed would be considered an arousing experience. Let's keep it strictly just in that terms. That's all I'm talking about here, in terms of making you feel like you're active, alert. You want to do non-alerting activities just before bed. But change does take time. It's taken me years to get to a point where I feel like my sleep is somewhat dialed in, that I can go to bed before 11 p.m. and get some sleep and wake up early. And even then, with all of these routines that I have, I still find it difficult to fall asleep sometimes. Sometimes that's just the only way, is that you can't always have perfect sleep. And no matter how hard you try, sleep just isn't going to come. And that's another thing, is just accepting that not every night you are going to get good sleep. Sometimes it will suck. But do know that in a couple nights it'll probably come around and you'll start getting that sleep that you need once again. So I just want you to know, if you are currently stuck in this loop of not getting any sleep, that you aren't broken. These things do take time. Change will happen, but it does happen slowly. I really like this term, that change happens slowly until it happens all at once. And you can take that term to anything. Anything in life where you're slowly practicing something, slowly making changes, at some point it will flip, and sleep will just be something that is better for you now. At some point when you start sticking to a sleep routine, your body just clicks and you're like, I can go to sleep at this time. I don't have to try so hard. And that's when the change happens all at once. So I'd like to leave that message with you, that yes, it may feel like you're broken right now. It may feel like you'll never get the sleep that you need right now. But change is possible. And those small things that you do throughout the day do add up. And then change will happen all at once. I hope this has helped. Thanks for listening.